All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming to today's webinar. We are going to be talking about debt repayment strategies today. Very important topic. Obviously, debt is a pretty involved and stressful situation. So we really want to make sure that we are helping increase people's knowledge about the various options they might have available to them and the various strategies that they can use to help themselves get out of debt or make sure that they're optimizing the best way that they can handle the situation. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's presentation, we're going to do just a little bit of intro talk while we wait for people to kind of come in. Here's the meet the hosts. So my name is Ty Koppelson. I'm here today with my boss, Jen Fries, and then our coworker, Terrence, is in the background. We are the community engagement team here at the Harvard Federal Credit Union. We are the ones that lead a lot of the webinars and the various financial education topics we do, as well as we organize a lot of volunteer events and we do a lot of community-based work, which is really great. And we are actually recently, as of the end of last year, certified credit union financial counselors. So we have a little bit more weight to the things we're able to say, but the point is that we really know a lot about what we're trying to talk about here today. So thank you all for coming and thank you for welcoming us. So today's presentation is going to be in webinar mode. This means that you're all automatically muted. Your cameras are automatically off. So you can eat your lunch. You can enjoy. You don't have to worry about making any extra sound. We are going to use today's Q&A feature rather than the chat for any questions that are asked. We definitely encourage questions. We always want to make sure we're answering questions, that we're having some feedback as we go. We're working with you guys. So if you can, use the Q&A feature to test out to make sure it's working. You can put in any question you have or just let us know where you're joining from. We have members from all over the country. So the Q&A feature is a really handy tool. Make sure you know where it is if you're trying to figure out a question. If it's not on your Zoom taskbar, you might need to hit the more three dots on the side, and then you should be able to find the button that says Q&A there, and then you'll be able to ask questions directly. So make sure you know how to use that if you're going to ask a question. All of our webinars that we do are automatically recorded and uploaded to our YouTube. So this presentation is going to be recorded, and then you'll be able to find it on our YouTube shortly afterwards. So you can always review it if you're worried that you missed a certain spot or anything like that. You can always take another look, as well as find all of the other presentations and different content we do. We've done all sorts of different webinars about budgeting, credit, all sorts of different topics. So it's all available on the YouTube for free. And then we do often send out a survey after our presentations as well. We always make sure that we read all of the feedback we receive because we're always trying to improve. So keep an eye out for a follow-up survey email later on. So thank you all so much for coming. I want to start with the number one question we always get is, what's the difference between a credit union and a bank? And so we like to make sure we hit on that. Credit unions are not-for-profit financial institutions. So basically what that means is that we do everything that a bank does, only better is how we like to say it. But basically, because we're not for profit, we don't need to make a profit off of our members. We're not trying to make a profit for any shareholders. So we are able to reinvest the profit that we do make as a financial institution back into our community and into our members in all sorts of different ways. One of the main things that we do that people always love is that we actually refund all ATM fees for our members. So if you have a debit card with the credit union and you go and an ATM charges you a fee when you take out cash, we're automatically going to give you that money back. It's just one of the ways that we are able to reinvest our profits back into our member base. And yeah, it's really great. Even though we have a smaller footprint, we also have co-op shared branching network with many other credit unions. So even if you are traveling to a different part of the country and you need to access your accounts or something like that, you need to go in to a branch. There isn't a branch out there, but you could go into a different credit union's branch and access your accounts with us because we all work together. It's another way that we are able to work as a community, and that's really great. So that's enough about the intro, though. Let's get into the topic we have at hand today. So a little bit too fast. All right. So when you're talking about debt management, the most important thing to do when you're facing a lot of debt and you feel like you're treading water and you're not quite sure what the next steps are going to be, is to think about your goals. Why do you want to get out of debt? What are some of your goals? And since money is personal, your financial goals are very personal too, especially when it comes to debt. And so I would like to ask each of you to take a vision, take a moment to envision what your debt is. And I always encourage in all of my presentations, basically budgeting and everything, is to start writing down what are your goals. Because getting something into paper, getting it into like out of your mind and onto a physical thing is a really great step towards moving into making it a reality. So once you've got a thought about what your goals are, then congratulations, you're here. So the next thing to do is going to be, what do you owe? Figure out all of your different debts that you have, and then we're going to do a exercise where you want to write down what you owe, who do you owe it to. You want to make sure you list each of the creditors, the current balance of the debt, and the interest rate that you pay for the debt. You're also going to want to, as part of this process, figure out your credit score. There's a number of different ways you can do this. If you are a member of the credit union, we actually have this really great new tool directly on our online banking or mobile app called Savvy Money. It's super, super great, and it will show you your credit score and show you when it changes in real time, which is super awesome. Jen, did you have something you wanted to mention?
Oh, I was just gonna say that I had a goal when I was
Mm,
in debt. So after my divorce, I was in a situation where I had some credit card debt built up, and I did this, and I literally just did it on a piece of paper, and
hmm
um, I would kind of scratch it out and like scrawl in the new debt as it was going down, 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 and it was just really cathartic for me. Every few months, I would go in there
hmm
my goals were to have that sense of financial wellness, to be able to reestablish myself and independently and know that I could take care of myself and my child financially, and then also some home repairs, right? So
Yeah,
that's just an example, I guess, and everyone here obviously has their own personal story about if you have debt, what it would mean to you to pay it off.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but I
absolutely.
know, you mentioned Savvy Money, and then we also have annualcreditreport.com is available to anyone, even if you're not a credit union member. And I think we're gonna put that link in the chat for annualcreditreport.com. You can check your credit for free on there as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really great tool. It's the one place for sure where it's always free to get your full credit report. You can do it. It used to be, I think, once a year, but now, ever since COVID, they've really increased how often you can do it, which is really cool. So that's another really great resource to make sure that you have all of the pieces together. And the important part of writing down all of your creditors, all of your debt, the balance, the interest rate, and all these things is because the next step we want to do is calculating the actual cost of your debt. And what that means is that even though you see what your monthly payment is, and you're like, oh, that's the cost. The cost is my monthly payment. It's really hard to get a full sense of the actual overall cost of the big picture of the debt and the interest rate and how much it's going to cost you over the months and the years until you like really break it down. So here's an example. This example lendee has two different debts. They have a $10,000 debt with a 7.5% interest rate for 120 months, and their monthly payment for that is $119. And then they also have another debt of $5,000 at 18% APR, annual percentage rate. And that term is for 60 months. So they've got a bigger debt for a longer term and a smaller debt for a shorter term, right? And they have the two different monthly payments. And so it might look like, oh, the monthly payment is the cost of the debt, 246. However, when you really break down how much it's going to total cost you in interest over the terms of the debt, you can see the real true cost of what that debt's going to be. The total interest paid over both of these terms is going to be almost $7,000, which is a lot. And so finding a way to first break this down and then figuring out different ways you can try to help tackle that debt to make sure that you are understanding the true cost and finding different ways you can help yourself reduce that cost is going to be really, really helpful and really a really important step. So this is our example. Now, the other thing that's really important to talk about is emergency fund. You don't just want to pay off your debt. Even if you're in a difficult situation and you don't have a lot you can use to make payments to the debt, you want to make sure that you're also saving some money for an emergency fund. So you can start by even a small amount. And the importance of this is that um, if you don't have any emergency fund and an emergency happens or an unexpected life expense happens, then the only option for you to be is to go into more debt to cover that emergency, right? And to go into more debt while you're already trying to pay off existing debt can just be like a cycle of unfortunate situation where you're just never going to be able to, you're just going to be treading water and you're not going to be able to get your head out of that situation. So it's important to, however much you can, save for an emergency fund in addition to paying off your debt. So however much you're able to, you know, have at the end of the month or whenever you pay your expenses to both save some money to start building up that emergency fund, ideally up to 3 months, up to 6 months over time. You don't do this overnight. It's an extended period of time thing. Then if anything happens, you can cover that with money you already have whilst you're also then paying off your debts to be able to get yourself out of the situation. And so you want to start small and then build up, whether that's starting to save for emergency fund or how much you're able to pay off on your debts. You can start with $50 a month or less or whatever you're able to do. But then as you go, hopefully, as you're paying off some amounts of your debt and stuff like that, if you have different types of debts and some of them are for smaller terms, you can pay those off. You're going to be able to start increasing the amount that you either save or pay off on your debts. And if you're able to do that, it's going to actually have a huge impact. You wouldn't think so at first because you're like, oh, how much would it be? How much more difference would it be to do $50 a month or $100 a month? Well, we're going to break it down for you in just a minute. But being able to slowly increase the amount of both your savings and your debt payments is going to be really huge on the actual total impact of how much you're able to pay. So there are a couple of different debt repayment strategies that are considered really helpful, impactful ways to tackle, especially if you have a lot of different types of debts. And those are called the snowball and the avalanche methods. So there are a couple different ones. The two different ones, they have different strategies for them. So the snowball method focuses on the smallest amount of debt. So say you have, like 3 or 4 debts, and one of them is for $10,000 and one of them's for $2,000. With the snowball method, you would want to start paying off. First of all, you always want to make the minimum payments on each debt monthly. That is the basis. That's going to make sure that it doesn't have an outstanding negative impact on your interest or on your credit score. You always want to make sure you're doing on-time payments and at least the minimum payments for all of your debts. That's the number one most important thing to be able to do, because then you're going to make sure that your credit score is growing instead of being really negatively impacted. So once you start by making the minimum payments on all of your monthly debts, the next step is you want to make extra payments on the smallest debt. That's the snowball method. So you start making extra payments on the smallest debt, and then since it's smaller than the other debts, you will pay that one off sooner because the total amount that it is, you will pay off sooner because it's a smaller amount. So once that's paid off, that debt will be paid off, and then you're going to move on to the next smallest loan debt. The best way to do this is so once you've paid off the smallest loan, you take the amount that you were paying, the minimum payment or even more, and then you add that on to the next smallest loan payment. So say I have a loan for $2,000 I'm paying off, and my payment on that loan is $50 a month. Once I've paid off that $2,000 loan, I'm going to take the $50 a month that I was paying to that small loan, and I'm going to add that $50 to my monthly payment of my next smallest loan. So that way, as you pay off these small loans and it gets bigger and bigger, the amount you're paying on each of the other loans as you go is going to increase. And so you will pay off each of those sooner and sooner. And that's a snowball because as you're rolling it, it gets bigger. So that's the visual there is that as you go through the small loans and you're paying it off, you keep adding those amounts to the next one and it gets bigger and bigger. And that's going to make sure that you can tackle them in a timely manner and increase your ability to pay them off sooner because you're going to pay off the smaller ones. Those will get paid off and then you'll go from there. So the avalanche method is slightly different. Rather than starting with the smallest amount of debt, you want to focus on the highest interest rate. I think that I would personally recommend this one over the snowball amount because the interest rates are really is what's going to impact how much extra you're paying over time. The snowball method can be good if you have a lot of smaller debts that are a small total amount because you'll be able to pay them off more quickly as you snowball up. But the avalanche method works better if you have a longer terms of higher interest rate that are larger amounts because you want to tackle the interest rates first. So you do the same thing. You make the minimum payments on each debt monthly. That's the basis that you should always do. And then you make extra payments instead of on the smallest amount, on the highest interest rate. So this is going to make sure that you're paying off your loans that have a higher interest rate first, which is good because then you will be paying less over term, less over the overall amount. As we looked at when we calculated the true cost of the loans and the debt, the higher the interest rate and the more time, the more you're going to be paying overall. And so paying off those high interest rates sooner is going to make sure that overall you're not paying as much, which is great. And then just like the snowball, um, once the highest interest rate is paid off, you want to then move on to the next highest interest rate loan, and you want to add on that same amount. So this is a little visual here. With the debt snowball, you focus on the smallest amount and you move up. And with the debt avalanche, you focus on the highest interest rate and you move down. Either way, you're increasing the amount that you pay on each subsequent loan as you pay them off, which is a great way to make sure that you are tackling and adding on to your payments for the next one, which is really, really great because even increasing your payment, your monthly payment for a little bit is going to have a huge impact on how fast and the total amount or how fast you pay off the loan and the total amount that you pay.
And Ty, can I chime in here a little
Of
bit?
course, yeah.
So I think for me, I use mostly the debt avalanche. It is the one that makes more sense just in a math sense. You know, you
Hmm.
are making a bigger impact when you're paying your extra to your higher interest rate. However, I used a little bit of the snowball in the sense that sometimes if you have too many payments to keep track of, it can be difficult. So I had one card that was really small, and I did start there just to have it be there's something I didn't need to keep track of anymore. I paid
Hmm.
that one off, kept it open, but then moved on instead of to the next smallest one. I was like, okay, no, now I need to really tackle, in my case, my credit card that was the highest interest rate. So, um, money's personal and emotional, and so
Hmm.
you know, it really depends on what's going to make the people attending successful, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like if you have a lot of smaller loans, then the debt snowball might just feel very good to start just paying off a lot of those smaller ones. But if you have fewer and larger amounts, the avalanche is always going to be, I think, kind of the way to make sure that you're tackling those interest rates first. Okay, so as I've mentioned a couple times now, a little goes a long way when it comes to increasing your monthly payment. So as we can see here, say I have a $10,000 loan at 7% interest rate, and my monthly payment is that I'm making is $200. So the total interest that I'm going to pay over the term of 60 months is $1,858 if I'm doing $200 a month on that payment, right? However, if I increase that by only $25, so my monthly payment from 200 to 225, you can see that already I'm paying this loan off 8 months sooner. That's almost a full year. And the total interest paid also goes down by a couple $100, which is meaningful. And then if I was able to increase that loan amount, my monthly payment amount by even just another $25, so jumping from a total of 200 to 250 a month, you can see now that the term of when this loan will be paid back is over a year at 14 months, and I will have saved over $400 on the amount. And that's just from increasing this steadily. So it's not always easy to increase your monthly payment, especially when you're also trying to save money for an emergency fund in addition to everything else. But this is one of the reasons why something like the avalanche method is so great because you would say once you pay off some of your loans, then that amount that you use to pay that loan, you would then contribute to the monthly payment that you would make on the next month. So say I had two loans, one was $200 here, and the other one I was paying $100 on. if I pay off the $100 loan, I can tack on that $100 monthly payment onto the monthly payment for this loan. And then suddenly I would be reducing the term and the total interest paid by an even more meaningful amount. So this is why it's just important to know that whenever you can find some wiggle room, some leeway when it comes to increasing your monthly payments, even a small amount over time, it's going to have a huge impact and you're really going to notice that. And this is why it's also good to write down everything so you can really see the impact you can actually have by just increasing it a small amount. All right, and then now I want to talk about some options. There's a lot of different options you can have on top of the strategy you use to tackle your debt management that are going to really help you. So one thing you can do is you can speak directly with your lender. There are definitely times when you can negotiate with a lender of outstanding debt a different amount of monthly payment, a different amount of overall. It's within the lender's best interest that you are going to be able to pay them an amount at all rather than go into collections or not be able to pay entirely. So it's not always something that's going to work, but it's something that's worth trying is to speak with decision maker at your lender. You can propose a new payment, calculate how much you were able to pay. And the more you're able to bring to them to discuss, like, this is how much I can pay, here's my options, the more they'll be able to like work with you. You can ask about interest rate reduction, loan deferment, loan forbearances, loan extension and consolidation. There's a lot of different options you can do. There's a lot of negotiation room you can try to have. And then when you're doing that, it's always important to have a paper trail, keep notes of your conversations, including the names of people you speak with. You just really want to make sure you're organized about the information that you gather when speaking with your lender and making sure that as you talk about what your options might be with them, that you make notes of it and make sure you are figuring out what's going to work best for you and having that paper trail. So that's one option. But there are other options as well. Refinancing is definitely one that can help. So refinancing is when you take out a new loan to pay off a previous loan. And the reason why this can be good is because when you increase your credit score, which you are good news, as long as you're making minimum payments on all of your debt and you're doing it on time, you will be slowly increasing your credit score automatically. So as you make monthly payments over the months, over the years, you'll be increasing your credit score, which will then make you eligible for lower interest rates. And when you're eligible for lower interest rates, you can refinance a loan by opening a new loan at a smaller interest rate to then pay off a previous loan at a higher interest rate. So there are definitely some benefits here. You would have a lower interest rate. You could have more freedom over the loan terms, extended loan terms, leading to a lower monthly payment if that's the thing that you're struggling with the most. And then there's typically no application fee or prepayment penalties for doing a refinance. Now, I do want to make sure that I point out there are sometimes some not negative, but like difficult things with refinancing. For the main example is if you have direct loans from the student loans from the federal government, and if you refinance those loans, you will then no longer be eligible for federal forgiveness or loan forbearance because the terms of the original loan, which is going to include the various student loan forgiveness options, forbearance options, that kind of thing. If you refinance, that loan will be entirely paid off. And so any sort of benefits or different kind of terms and negotiations you have with that loan, including forgiveness tracks, that kind of thing, would then be closed out because the loan would be entirely paid off and you would have this new loan instead that you would be paying off. But not all loans have those types of benefits anyway. So it's just something you would really want to make sure that you're researching and understanding about your original loan before you jump into the possibility of refinancing. But it can be a really great option. And especially if you're not on those student loan forgiveness tracks, that kind of thing, definitely something to consider. There are other benefits of refinancing as well. So refinancing, like we said, can get you a lower interest rate. For example, this is a $10,000 loan with $200 payments for 60 months. So at the original 7% interest rate, your monthly payment would be 200. Your total interest is going to be 1,858, and your loan's going to be 60 terms. However, if you're able to refinance this loan into a lower interest rate, so let's say 5%, your monthly payment's going to go down over the same term. So that's going to be because you're paying less overall. So even over the same amount of time, you can have a lower interest or a lower monthly payment. However, if the monthly payment is not the thing you're struggling with, then that save 5% loan, if you do the same $200 monthly payment, you keep the same amount. As we talked about, a little goes a long way. So increasing the amount you pay from 89 or 189 to 200 a month is going to make it so that you can pay that loan off 3 months faster and save yourself about $100. So definitely things to keep in mind is that interest rate can give you options with either your total monthly payment, if that's the thing you struggle with, or the total amount of interest that's going to be paid and the total term as well. So it gives you some flexibility there. So yes, things to consider before you refinance. To recap, interest rate. You can compare interest rates once your credit score goes up, especially over time by paying off your debt. Then you will be eligible for a lower interest rate, and you can use that to refinance to a lower interest rate, which, like we just talked about, is going to give you some more flexibility, some more options, some more breathing room. But you may lose benefits associated with your original loan. If your original loan had a certain type of agreement for student loan forgiveness tracks or other such benefits, if you refinance, you will be closing out that old loan. So something to keep a track of and make sure you understand what your loan benefits are going to be. And then your credit score. A higher credit score, as like I mentioned, time goes up, will mean a lower interest rate, and that'll provide you some benefits to refinancing. So one other thing I did just want to mention with refinancing is that it can also help you consolidate some loans. So if you have a number of different smaller loans or something like that, you can take out a new loan, pay off all of those other smaller loans, and then pay just the interest on the new loan. So something to keep track of rather than if there's like 4 or 5 different types of loans you may have that are small and it's hard to keep track of them and hard to make all the monthly payments for them and understand. Consolidating those into one loan with one monthly payment is another benefit that you could keep track of. So in general, when it comes to loans, when you can, whether that's refinancing or if you're thinking about applying for a new loan or something like that, you always want to try to look for lower rates. There's a number of different loans. There's personal loans, debt consolidation loans, which are like I was talking about, how you can consolidate some debt and get into a new loan with one payment rather than a number of different payments. Credit cards, you can do balance transfers to a credit card with a lower interest rate. There's also sometimes promotional balance transfers you can find where you might pay 0% interest for the first year that you open the new credit card. You do want to be careful of that though, because a lot of times these promotional credit card balance transfers for 0% for the first year, if you don't pay off the full amount of the credit card before that first year with that 0% interest rate, then oftentimes the full amount of the year's interest can then be charged to the card. So make sure you understand the terms of the agreement, of the promotion, of the credit card balance transfer. Make sure you understand the fine print and what's going on. But these can be, when used smartly, excellent tools for consolidating your loans, transferring your loans and your cards and your balances to a different new thing with a lower interest rate can be really, really helpful. So there's also different options for mortgage refinancing, auto refinancing, student loan refinancing. There's all sorts of different options within each of those sort of specialized debts that can be really helpful.
Ty, I was just going to mention that I did use one of those 0% cards, and you have to do the math and just be really careful that it's paid off with, it's usually 1 year, but sometimes it's different terms. So,
Mm-hmm.
I did the math, I transferred a certain amount into there that allowed me to just know that if I paid, whatever it was, like $350 a month just to that on auto pay, that I was going to have it safely paid off within like 11 and a half months.
Mm-hmm.
And would be paying no interest on that part, but I had to keep up my minimums on the other stuff. So it was a strategy and one you have to keep on top of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for saying that, Jen. Yeah, it's really important to make sure you're understanding all of the loans, the terms, the fine print of those things, but they can be really, really great tools. So it's just something to make sure that you're doing your research on, doing your due diligence, looking at the options available for you, and figuring out what's going to work best for your own unique situation. Okay. So that brings me to GreenPath. GreenPath is a partner that we have here at Harvard Federal Credit Union. They are amazing. GreenPath is a nonprofit that does financial wellness. They offer free credit budget or credit counseling, budget counseling, housing counseling, and they offer also debt repayment plans. So GreenPath is really, really amazing. What I always say is if you we talk very educationally about these sort of big terms here on our presentations. But if you want to know how you can help apply some of these things we're talking about directly to your own individual situation, GreenPath is absolutely the next best step. You don't have to be a member with our credit union to be able to use this benefit. As long as we refer you to them, then you are able to get this credit budgeting counseling completely free. So just let them know that we sent you their way. You can either call them or go on their website and fill out their form, and they are really, really great. Now, on top of the free counseling that they do offer also a debt management plan service. Debt management plan is not free, but this is a really, really great service that you can work with a certified company like GreenPath to they'll help you take a look at all of your debts, all of your interest rates. They're going to provide that financial counseling, but they're also, more importantly, going to help you reduce your interest rates of your debts. Debt management plans are like basically certified plans that can help reduce the total costs you have. And there is a fee for this, a monthly fee, but because the whole point is that they understand that this service is trying to save you money, they do their absolute best to make sure that the fee is going to, like, the total cost of the plan with the fee is still going to save you a good amount of money on top of that. And I will get to that in just a second because we have an example slide of what that could look like. But it is important to also note that a debt management plan is not the same as debt settlement. So let's take a look here. So this is an example of GreenPath Financial Wellness's program. In this example, before this this member worked with GreenPath, their interest charges every month were $573.13. They had some late and over limit charges as well. There wasn't a service fee because they weren't on a debt management plan yet, but they were only paying a small amount on the principal. And what this means is principal payment is how much you're paying towards the interest that is going to be charged on your loan. So the smaller this number is, the longer it's going to take you to pay off the loan because you need to be paying towards the amount of interest. But as we can see on the GreenPath program here, we can see that the debt management plan was able to reduce their monthly interest charges by about half, from $573 a month to $234 a month. So we can see it also reduced their late and over limit charges. And then there is now the service fee for being on the debt management plan, that $50 a month. But this is a huge, much higher principal payment that they're making now. So almost like more than 4 times as much is going towards principal of their monthly payments. And this means they're going to actually pay off their debt sooner. And as we can see, there's various benefits here. And on average, member is estimated to pay off unsecured debt 40 months sooner, multiple years sooner, and save $31,960 on this same sort of plan using the debt management plan rather than just being on their current thing. So these types of things can be really huge. This is just an example, of course. What this would look like for each individual person is really going to change. But at the very least, whether or not you decide to sign up for a debt management plan, if you feel like this is a tool that would help you, GreenPath does have that free counseling regardless. So it's definitely a really, really great resource, super, really helpful. And they're going to be able to help you figure out what's going to work best for you, whether that would be a debt management plan or another strategy. So definitely something to keep in mind.
And Ty, can I chime in a little on
Absolutely. Yeah,
debt
please.
management? In a debt management program, you are paying back the whole debt. So this is not a settlement. A settlement is going to show on your credit report as a negative, a ding, that you settled a debt and didn't pay the whole amount. And the settlement can also have tax consequences because it's considered income by the IRS. So we definitely don't recommend those settlement services, but a debt management plan is just a strategy, a way to pay off your whole debt. So
Yes, thank you, Jen. Yeah, that's important. I did mention briefly that it's not the same as a debt settlement, but it is important
yeah,
to break that down and what that means.
yeah, thank
So,
you.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because debt settlement, like Jen said, is going to be something where you don't pay off the full amount of the debt, which can be helpful in some cases, but it also means it's going to negatively impact your credit score. And like she said, it can be viewed as income and these other complicated things. So This is another plan where you do pay off the full amount, which is great. It's going to not negatively impact your credit score in that way, and is definitely a really good option that's out there. Okay, so next steps, I would say it's important to just stay motivated. I know that it can feel really soul crushing to be in debt and not know what to do, not know how to get out of it. But luckily, there are a number of different steps, like we've talked about today, that are really going to help you break it down and take this really complicated concept, this like fog of not understanding what you can do, not understanding what small steps are actually going to be helpful, and help clear the way and help you find a way out. Staying informed about both your own personal debts, how much you're paying on them, how much the interest rate is, how much you have left to pay, and understanding that there are different actions you can take to move forward and find a path that's going to work for you. And those actions are going to be broken down. There's things you can do today. There's things you could do this week, this month. Finding those stats, I would say, first thing you could do is just, like I said, start writing down what your financial goals are. Start writing down that sheet of all of your debts and break down, try to figure out what the total cost of your debts is really going to look like. Understand how it's really impacting you, not just on a monthly basis, but over time, over the term of that debt, because it's not just how much you're paying a month, but it's also how much you're paying overall. So just make sure you're taking steps, make sure you're moving forward. Maybe call GreenPath if you feel like that's going to be helpful for you. Something like that is going to be making sure you're committing and moving forward with a plan that's going to work for you. And we offer some tools. I mentioned briefly that Savvy Money is this great tool we have personally on our online banking at the credit union. It's a really, really great tool that once you sign up for it right on our online banking, it's going to show you your credit score, and it's going to show you your credit score in real time. If it goes up or down over the months, it's going to like give you very specific details of it. It's going to give you daily updates, real-time alerts, personalized tips on how you might also find ways to increase your credit score, as well as special offers to help your credit. It's a really, really great tool. And it's really, I always find it very awesome when I log in and I just see it there. It's like, oh, my credit score went up 1 point or down 1 point. And it's very helpful to be able to see. The other important thing I want to mention about it is it's going to show you right away. You'll notice right away if your credit score starts dipping downwards very fast. And that usually means that probably there's something associated with your credit that may or may not be something that's actually yours. And so it's always good to check your credit report from annualcreditreport.com, as we said, because that's going to give the full breakdown of everything on your credit. So it's just a really great tool to be able to take a look at your credit, understand what's happening, and if anything happens. And like I mentioned, better credit score equals better interest rates. So something you definitely want to be a tool you want to have in your pocket for in making sure that you're getting the best you can for your debt. I do just want to mention a brief disclaimer, like I said, that this presentation is educational in nature and is not construed as tax, legal, or investment advice. We are only able to talk about topics very educationally. And like I said, if you really want to know, because everybody's situation is different, and if you want to know how to apply some of these concepts to your own unique individual situation, GreenPath is definitely going to be the next step for you. We are only able to talk about these from an educational standpoint. We also have a new branch opening up soon. Just another benefit we have coming to One Brigham Circle later this summer. It's a really great. We're really excited about it. So if you're in the area, definitely worth checking out once it opens up. We have all sorts of fun benefits and various events and stuff planned for that. Another way we are able to give back to our community. So keep an eye out. And then let's keep in touch. We always want to make sure that we have a direct line to our membership and to our community. So we have multiple different ways you can reach out to us if you have questions. If you didn't want to ask a question on the presentation or you think of one later or something like that, we're always happy to hear your questions, your feedback, whether that's through email, our website. We have a number of different social channels, or that survey link that'll most likely be sent out after today's presentation in a follow-up email as well. So just something to keep in mind. We always want to hear from you guys. We always looking to improve, and we always want to make sure you can communicate with us whenever possible. So we always look at that feedback, and we always make sure that we have that line. So yes, Jen.
Hey, Ty, we do have an open question. We've been answering questions along the
Oh
way.
yes, yes,
But
perfect.
we have a member or a person who's asking, they've gotten several notices saying different companies have been hacked and their information is at risk. I think a lot of us have received these.
Mm.
Do we recommend freezing their credit with the 3 agencies? And whether they should ask for their credit score before they freeze them. So if you're a member of Harvard FCU and you can use Savvy Money for free and check your credit score there and see if there's any new accounts that have been opened up. You have a couple options like a credit freeze or a fraud alert. Those are 2 different sort of levels. I'm putting into the chat a blog post we have about the difference between a credit freeze and a fraud alert. But freezing your credit is definitely great if you have experienced any fraud, because then no one can open any new lines of credit. It adds a little complication. You have to go in, you have to remember your PIN, and you have to go in and unfreeze it if you do want to take a loan. You can also put the fraud alert, and there's certain precautions that are put in place. And we actually have a lot on the blog about just protecting yourself from fraud. So there may be other things you want to do, such as making sure you have different passwords on all your sites, 2-factor authentication, or multi-factor authentication. So there are other things you can do as well if you're feeling like your information is at risk. So
Absolutely. Yeah, we also recently did a whole presentation about frauds and scams and that
good
kind of
point.
thing. That's
Yeah.
another thing that's available for free on our YouTube.
Mhm.
Another similar webinar just like this. We actually brought in our expert. We have a new fraud and scams like manager here at the credit union whose job is to like really help make sure that we are finding ways to reduce fraud with our members and in the community. So just another great resource that's available to you. So make sure you're getting out there and looking at all of the various things you can do.
Yeah. So thank you for that question. I don't see any other open questions now, Ty.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming today. As I want to say congratulations, as putting some time out to come to today's presentation means you are taking a step forward towards something that you can do to help, whether it's navigate debt or some other financial situation. And so thank you all so much for coming. By taking this time, you've taken one step forward today, and hopefully you can find some more steps that you can take soon to increase the benefit you have. So good luck with everything, and thank you for coming. We'll see you later.